Alrighty, welcome everyone. I am Teeaboo and I am super sneezy today, so I'm just going to read a little thing that I wrote over the last couple of hours about Kimetsu, and I hope that you enjoy it. We'll see how it goes. I hope that I can get through it with one take without sneezing. Many times over the last years of watching various anime series, I have said something to the effect of maybe I'll come back and record a video of my thoughts on this show once they've settled down a bit. But I've never actually gone ahead and recorded that video until now. We just wrapped up Kimetsu no Yaiba's Entertainment District or Red Light District arc, where our young demon slayers join the flamboyant polygamous himbo, Tengen Uzui, on a mission to Edo's seediest district, Yoshiwara. From Tengen's introduction to the final denouement, this arc has been a wild ride of crazy gags, incredible twists, and spectacular action, all tied together with a thematic thread that, like Tanjiro's opening thread, leads the viewer tumbling, dodging, and weaving through to a bombastic conclusion. I like it. I like it a lot. First off, I really like this arc's length. It ends up being almost exactly one cour, and while it clearly fits into the overarching story of Demon Slayer, it can almost be experienced as a complete separate standalone piece, sort of like Mugen Train. I think this might be one of the ideal formats for an ongoing battle shonen, taking its place as an interesting intermediate in between long-form multi-seasonal narrative styles and sort of episodic Monster of the Week style shows. I see a lot of power in this sort of a cour-length arc that can capture the long-term viewership that's invested in the overall trajectory of the characters, while also grabbing the immediate attention of newer audiences without requiring complete understanding or total investment into the whole of the story, but while demonstrating that it might be valuable. There are bits and pieces of the arc that you want more information on, and so you might want to go and read or experience those other portions. If each arc is somewhat separately delineated both in its narrative and its timing and flow, then I think that the studio can focus on bringing each location and villain and theme to life fully, and then the audience can experience a complete narrative arc in the cour format, which maintains a sort of sense of pace and fulfillment while building toward a greater finale. So you don't have to watch 160 episodes in order to get to your finale. You get something conclusive, and you can do it in sort of chunks, piece by piece, which it just seems to make sense to me. I think there are some shows like Symphogear that are already excellent examples of this kind of season by season pacing, but I don't think that they usually come out of manga adaptations because the manga format is so different, and it's not necessarily a part of your landscape or what you're thinking about when you're writing a manga, to really consider how it's going to be adapted into an anime and how that'll format for like TV series seasons. You're not really writing a screenplay or a script in that sense, so it ends up being difficult. But when it works, like this particular arc, man, it really kicks ass. It really kicks ass to have a piece of storytelling in a bigger, larger context that feels like it's got a distinctive start, middle, end. Amazing. It's great. It's really cool to have a full narrative arc inside an arc. It's really good. And I know that sounds so stupid and so obvious, but it's not obvious. And there are a lot of shows that completely fuck it up. Like, completely. How many shows do you watch where you get to the ending and either it's all crammed in there because it doesn't get adapted properly, or it just ends without anything compelling happening or anything interesting happening because it's ongoing, and the manga that they're adapting from doesn't take into account the cour structure of anime. You can see that I'm just falling apart. I cannot stop my eyes from watering and my nose from schnurfling and So I think shows like Symphogear are already excellent examples of this kind of season-by-season pacing, and I think it works great. Let me know if you've gotten any other examples of shows where that sort of works really well, or if anything hits your imagination immediately and you're like, oh, you know what's an example of a thing that did that terribly, that messed that all up, and it felt all disconnected and stuff? Hit me with those in the comments. I'd love to understand more and have more examples of places where this works, because I think this type of storytelling, as I said, it's somewhere in between sort of Monster of the Week typey thingies and longer form type of thingies, where you've got these longer form thing overall with distinctly delineated arcs that you can just watch. Like, you can just watch a later season of Symphogear. You probably shouldn't, but you could, and get it, because it's like, start, here's a villain, here's the thing, we move toward it, we end it, and we defeat the villain, and we're done. We did it. It's great. It's great. Just one story, and it feels like it's bite-sized. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay. Second, I really like the characters of the Entertainment District. While I hear complaints relatively frequently about the goofy interplay between the characters, and I have heard our main boys, especially Inosuke and Zenitsu, called one note or shallow, I've found their interactions to be a ton of fun, and their infiltration into the Red Light District was an enjoyable fish out of water experience. Um, but of course, it is the newly introduced cast members who really steal the show. Flashy Tengen is an absolute centerpiece. He's like a Jotaro level mass monster with light footsteps and a sharp wit. He's initially reluctant to trust our trio, but that slowly burns away into a potent confidence that leads him to defend the new generation of Demon Slayers to his colleague in the last episodes. And that feels really fulfilling. It feels like earning the respect of a sensei. It makes me like Tengen while simultaneously demonstrating real growth from our lads, and I love it. I also really like his wives. One of my audience members pointed out that they are in many ways like a mirror to the boy trio. Suma the crybaby is like Zenitsu. Makio, the sort of insane and violent one, is Inosuke. And Hinatsuru is most level-headed and much like Tanjiro. Their interactions add flavor, and their presence adds danger and tension to the situation, allowing the demons easy hostages and soft targets to make the battle significantly more complicated. And similarly, the early introductions that we have to various members of the Yoshiwara houses serve to flesh out and humanize a distinctly humanizing location, and a distinctly dehumanizing location, and that in turn makes it even more frightening and interesting. The kind Oiran who we meet, and the young girls in particular, produce within me a real sense of connection, and demonstrate that there is something worth saving and protecting here, and something that can be threatened by our evil demons in order to push our protagonists into action. I think it works great. But of course, among all of the characters of Demon Slayer, it is the demons who stand out the most across Demon Slayer's arcs, and the dual villains of our Entertainment District arc clear that bar with ease. Daki is stellar from the outset. First, she's mysterious. We don't even know what the monster is. Then monstrous in her duality and her flip-flopping between this kindly but obviously false exterior and this genuinely monstrous internal horror person. Ugh. Then she's purely destructive and genuinely violent, flipping, chopping stuff up all over the place. And finally, almost pitiful. She embodies a vitriolic, childish chaos that makes her spectacular in her own right. And then there's the incredible reveal that she's only half of the story. Gyutaro gets added to the picture, and his addition connects Daki to Nezuko and loops thematic ties together like the bow of her obi itself. Siblings and siblings, demons and slayers, suddenly it's more than an indictment of the sex trade or a simple vicious spider in her lair. Daki becomes an entity with weakness and softness, with her own ties and connections that both strengthen her and weaken her. Despite the dysfunction between them, there's powerful sentimentality in the relationship between the duo, and a long-standing love that really binds them together, even as horrible monsters, all the way through to the end. It's that connection that allows the demonic duo to serve as excellent foils for our very own mismatched siblings, and grants the whole arc an interconnected richness that I think makes the characters and interactions shine in retrospect. Third, the themes of this arc, I think, land for me. In the wake of Rengoku's death at the hands of Akaza, our characters train and persevere and push through their own limits to prepare better for their next encounter with an upper moon. In the wake of failure, that resilience and determination catapults them into new and dangerous circumstances, forces them to earn the trust of a superior, and in the background, Rengoku's father experiences his own transformation as a result of interacting with Tanjiro, facing himself in the background, as in the foreground, our heroes face themselves mirrored in the demons that they fight. Tengen steps in to fill the role of elder and mentor. He's not cut out for it in the way that Rengoku is, or at least he believes as much, but he too grows to fit his role in interacting with Tanjiro. Our characters fight fundamentally for justice and for what is right. Our characters are dedicated wholeheartedly to their friends. Our characters are brave and move toward danger despite setbacks and defeat. Our characters hold strong to their convictions in the face of another great hardship, near failure. And our characters overcome themselves to do the impossible, defeat an upper moon, and allow hope for humanity to bloom once more. We see it in that last scene with Master Kaguya pushing himself out of his bed while puking up blood. There's hope. They did the impossible. We move forward. And that ties everything back together to the end of Mugen Train, where we have this incredible failure and this loss and defeat. That makes this victory, this experience, so much sweeter. and it all ties together. It all ends up feeling really good. Finally, the action. I know that most people were expecting me to just talk about this. I'm gonna give it like one line. It's amazing. It's amazing. I cannot even begin to dissect it. I've done little bits and pieces, but there's stuff going on that I've never seen before and might never see again. It's a whole new world, baby. We looked at season 1, and when we were watching through season 1, I kept saying, like, man, this is going to change everything. This is going to change everything. And you know what? Everything's freaking changing. And Kimetsu continues, and Ufotable continues to be at the forefront. Nothing that I've ever seen looks like the last few episodes of this arc. Nothing looks like that. From the prime battles between Tengen and Gyutaro to those final moments with Tanjiro and Zenitsu floating around and flying everywhere, and good God, it's amazing. Look, this chunk of Kimetsu was freaking great. From Zenitsu jamming out, to Tengen's whirlwinds of spinning blades and smoke effects, to the somber but resonant ending. I think that the Entertainment District arc might be the best chunk of shonen storytelling that I've seen in recent memory. Greed Island, the Chimera Ant arc, the Chunin exams. There are a few arcs that I think really stand out and serve to define much longer shows. They're the ones that stand out to you when you think back about what a show meant and what it felt like and what it was as an experience, especially these longer ones. And I think that the Red Light District has, up until this point, been one of the defining arcs of my experience of Kimetsu no Yaiba. It's been great. And it sort of sets the bar at this point. Is like, this is what an arc of this sort of shonen can be. It is tight in its storytelling and its execution. It is interesting in its characterization. And it's just a blast. My only hope is that whatever comes next is so crazy, bombastic, and cool that it's good enough to dethrone this arc, wow me all over again, and have me saying, no, you know, I said that previous arc was the best one. I was wrong. It's this one. I want to be doing that every arc for the foreseeable future. Just like, oh, you know what? I was wrong. They beat it. They did it again. That would be freaking cool. But we'll have to wait until next week to find out about that. Because next week we begin the Swordsmith's Village arc of Kimetsu no Yaiba, which I think is wrapping up right about now, so we'll be starting it just as it wraps up, and that should be excellent. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little spiel about Kimetsu. Just looking back quickly, I've never done one of these before in this sort of a format, so let me know what you think of it. Suggestions are cool. And I'll see you next week for more Kimetsu. Happy Friday. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy yourselves. I hope that I stop sneezing. God. Please stop this. It's miserable. But I hope that despite that misery, I was able to create something that gives you at least a little bit of fun and connection and joy and talks about the thing in a cool way and gets my thoughts out there. So I enjoyed writing this and recording it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Support the channel on Patreon, and I'll see you next week for more Kimetsu no Yaiba. Peace!